Okay, let's get going. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm taking a look at our comments. Are starting to light up from YouTube Live and Facebook Live. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the National Inventor Club. This is our third meeting, and very excited to get started in just a moment, giving everybody a chance to sign up and sign in. A lot of text coming in. Okay. Everybody hear me okay? Testing 1, 2. Good. Can you guys hear me? Excellent. Thank you. Okay, what a great lineup of activity we have tonight. So let's get started. First off, I wanted to thank everybody again for joining us. National Inventor Club. This is our third meeting. The first meeting, we had the inventor of the cell phone, Marty Cooper. That was really interesting. And you could take a look at his interview and his speaking that he did for the National Inventor Club on the website under past meetings. And we also had last month, we had Trish Downey. She's from All-Star Innovation Group. And they did the Snuggie, Bendaroos, a lot of famous as seen on TV products that you've probably bought or they're in your house, so you see them in the stores. So you could take a look at that past meeting also. That's on the website. And let's also talk about all the new members. Thank you so much, inventors and service providers for inventors. Thank you for joining as members. And as a member, you receive this the National Inventor Club T-shirt, which is always fun. You have the Inventor Forum, you have the directory, and you'll also be a priority in the inventor showcases that we have, including service provider showcases that we have. So let me see if I can get this. Let me see if I can get this T-shirt. There we go. Nice National Inventor Club T-shirt. Which way do I go here? There we go. Pretty cool. Okay, so that's that. What I'd like to do is also introduce our sponsor for this evening. His name is Gabe Bentz, and he is from Angled.io. Welcome, Gabe. How are you?
Doing well, Brian. How are you?
So tell us what you have going. This is a really interesting company that you put together, that you launched. I know that there's some exciting things that you just launched. So why don't you tell us who you are and what you're about and what your company does?
Sure. Yeah, well, I'm one of the co-founders of Slant 3D, which we do mass production 3D printing. And by mass production, I mean hundreds of thousands, millions of parts. We make tens of thousands of parts every week. But more recently, we've been trying to leverage 3D printing so that the cost of manufacturing is non-existent. Right now, there's a lot of inventors out there, and if you've ever tried to get something manufactured, it's really, really expensive because you have this upfront bar you have to get past of tens of thousands of dollars for molds, the design, then the distribution and the shipping. We're trying to take all of that stuff and make it invisible and free. So with Angled.io, which is the new site that we just released, inventors are able to upload 3D models of their final product, and then it is available for customers to purchase. And when a customer purchases it, we print it, pack it, ship it to that customer, and the inventor receives a royalty right off the bat. So there's not this big need to create all the molds and ship them across the ocean and store them in your garage. It becomes free and unlimited to manufacture any sort of product you want, so long as you can conceive of it and upload a 3D model to the site. So it takes all of that complexity of manufacturing and makes it free and available to anyone who wants to utilize it, whether it's a kid in Africa or an inventor in their garage here in the States.
Very interesting. So I can have a 3D product, a 3D image, and I can put it on your website, and you'll do the marketing and so on and so forth. I can also invite people to your website. They can see my product on there, and then they can buy it. Somebody can buy it, and I'll earn a commission from it.
Right. Yeah, the standard commission is about 25%. And if you can just upload that 3D model, we do all we can to help you be successful on there.
Okay, great. And where can we go to get involved in this?
Angled.io.
Angled.io. Thank you very much, Gabe. We appreciate it. And actually, when you think about it also, when you have a product and you want to do some mass production of it, you can do that also without the tooling.
Right, exactly. You can sell 1 or you can sell 1 million, and it doesn't make any difference.
Excellent. And we go to angled.io. Thank you very much, Gabe. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Gabe. All right. So let's talk to Samantha. She is our Inventor Spotlight on National Inventor Club. So Samantha, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Listen, I'm wearing my T-shirt. Can you see
it? Yes, I do. Thank you.
Yeah, the colors are great. I love orange and blue.
Nice. All right. So Samantha, you are our Inventor Spotlight. So tell us why we nominated you. You put in something great that you really accomplished over the COVID lockdown. So why don't you tell us what you've done?
Well, I did. So I was furloughed from my my part-time job that pays the bills other than being an inventor. I'm sure a lot of people can maybe identify with that sometimes. So I had some time on my hands, and I've been in the restaurant hospitality industry for a very long time. And I've made several drinks for, you know, a lot of people. And there's a thing at the bar, you can order a layered drink, and it's typically done with a spoon, and you pour the Kahlua or the Baileys, those type of liqueurs over the spoon, and you can create like a layered cocktail. So during COVID and tons of time on my hands, you know, just the way the brain works, I'm like, well, I wonder how come there's not a bar tool that will do that for you? Because I was kind of terrible at it. It's kind of a technique, and you have to be very precise and to prevent liquor waste or over pours or things like that. So I came up with this little prototype here. I call it the layering ladle. It's a very simple design. It kind of looks like a measuring cup, also known as a jigger in the bar industry. So it fits in with all the other bar tool accessories. I can make this out of stainless steel. It's got a little slit right here at the bottom, and there's kind of a secret design inside that kind of makes it the layered effect. So a first-year bartender can make a layered drink for her guests, and or somebody at retail at home that has their own bar tools at home and they're a bar enthusiast. This is a perfect add-on tool for their existing, what they already have. So pretty excited about it.
Congratulations, Samantha.
Thanks. And I'm real excited to listen to Gabe just now, because that is sometimes part of the problem. You know, I worked during all COVID to kind of come up with the design. I filed the patent. I did all the research, and we made the 3D model. We did the drawings. And then I had to sit with, well, how am I going to mass manufacture or a limited order manufacturing? You know, you got to test your product, right? So this information from Gabe just now is like a dream come true. So thank you for bringing that to us, Brian. I mean, that is stellar information.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Samantha. You're doing a super job, and hopefully we'll see the layered ladle so I can be a professional bartender DIY in my own home. Now I just have to.
You can be a bartender, exactly. Everybody can. So I appreciate the platform tonight, dear. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look at some of the members that we have that are new members. Let's say hello to Nayib Iga. How you doing, Nayib?
Hey, how are you, Brian? How are you, everyone?
Doing good. So why don't you tell us who you are, where you're from, and why you're here?
I'm from New York, and I'm on a parking lot right now, as you can see. And thank you for helping me put together my idea. So I do have an idea of this. It's a bracket that is to be used with multi-monitor stands. And Brian, it's helping me out with the process, all along the process. It's in review for permanent patent. And yeah, I'm a rookie on this department, Brian. I'm a proud member, Brian. I have my teachers right here.
Nice. All right. I know you were concerned about the size. You're okay? You good?
I'm good, Brian. I'm good. I'm perfect.
Good. All right. Congratulations. Thank you, and keep on inventing. Good job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Naib. Enjoy the meeting tonight. Okay. All right. And let's get Will Salus. He is from the PTRC, which is the Patent and Trademark Resource Center. And he's going to talk to us quickly about what the PTRC, which is a division of the USPTO, U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, what that's about. Welcome, Will. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Brian. I'm a little envious of all those folks that have T-shirts, but I guess I'll have to earn mine soon.
All right, send me your address, Will. You got one. Send me your address and your size. I'll get one out to you.
So the reason I'm here is because people like Gabe and Samantha, Naib and Brian even, they all had to start somewhere. We're not born inventors. We kind of become inventors sometimes overnight. You wake up one morning and I have a great idea. Where do you go next? Well, you might consider coming to a public library or a university library that is registered to be a patent and trademark resource center. There's about 85 patent and trademark resource centers around the country, almost in every single state. To find out where they're located, visit the uspto.gov website and just type in PTRC in the search box, and you'll get a listing. And if you're in the Long Island area, I'd be offended if you didn't come and say hello to me. Now, what happens when you visit a PTRC? Well, the main thing that you get out of a visit is that we show the novice, the new person, how to begin their search, how to begin what we call a preliminary patent search. A lot of folks don't understand that your idea to be patentable, not only does it have to be functional, not only does it have to be new, it's got to be new, novel to the whole world, not just to patent offices. So that's a lot of research, very daunting. But if you're a do-it-yourselfer and if you're passionate, and I know if you have an invention, you are passionate about your ideas, then come and visit with a Patent and Trademark Resource Center. We'll give you the skills to get started. And if you have a business already and you have a mark that you'd like to use to distinguish yourself from the other competitors in your industry, we can also teach you about the trademark electronic search system, where you would go if you want to file a federal trademark. Now, for you professionals out there, it's also worth it to come and visit the Patent and Trademark Resource Center because we have some special databases. The databases used by patent examiners themselves, the Pub East and Pub West database, which you can only access at PTRCs around the country, as well as the Alexandria, Virginia headquarters. So please visit the PTRC. I'll have include my phone number and contact information in the chat over there, and we'd be love to make an appointment with you, and we can sit one-on-one. And I've just started actually offering some virtual appointments where we can meet virtually, and I give you a head start on your searching.
So what you're saying, Will, is we come up with an idea. It's always great to do a patent search. When we go on uspto.gov and we try to search, it gets a little bit overwhelming for us. So the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has this division called PTRC, Patent Trademark Resource Center, which you're one of X amount in the country. And what you'll do is we'll set up an appointment with somebody like yourself. You'll help us to pull prior art that's similar to what we might have. And are you going to tell us what you think about our idea and if it's something that we should move forward with from a patent perspective?
Well, what I do is everything I do is by example. I can't give legal advice or business advice. I'm not an attorney. So I always show people by example how to perform a preliminary search, and then they could use what I have shown them. They could apply it to their own device.
Okay. So we take the information, we can bring it to a patent attorney or agent, or we can make our own decision and we could take it from there. But how much does it cost?
Zero. It's absolutely free. And I never discourage anyone from hiring an attorney, but it's always a good idea to do a little searching on your own first. You'll be a better client for your attorney, and you might find that your device may already be in there. It might have already been patented. It may already exist. But it's good to find out, do some research first before you make that kind of investment into your idea.
Okay. Thank you very much, Will. And you'll share in the stream with us? You'll share
I'll do it right now.
the contact info. I think you have to go on either Facebook or YouTube right now. When you hang up here, to go on there, and you can go into the stream and give everybody the info. But inventors, take advantage. USPTO has this PTRC program. You can help get search information to help you to make a better decision if you should move forward or not with your invention. Thank you, Will. We appreciate everything you do.
Thanks. Looking forward to that double XL t-shirt.
Send me your address,
Ryan.
Will. Thanks. See you soon.
Take care.
Okay. All right. I also want to take a quick second to thank the Small Business Development Center at Farmingdale State College here in New York. They're a sponsor. There's many small business development centers around the country where you can get help with business plans and resources and network to help you with your business. And when you're coming up with an invention, it's really coming up with and starting a business. So making sure that you do your due diligence and your research, and they're there to help you. And that's a free resource too. You could go to small SBDC or America's SBDC, and you can find one locally by you. Most of the time they're in a college in your area. I also want to thank Terry Whipple with Wisconsin Economic Development. Many of his inventors groups that he helps to run and to facilitate there are joining us. And thank you, Wisconsin. And thank you, Terry. And for SBDC, I wanted to thank Erica Chase Gregory and Walter Reed. Thank you very much. All right. So I think I see a baby shark. I think I see one. There he is.
Hello, Brian.
Hello, Alex Kenjeev. Welcome to the National Inventor Club.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Oh, why don't you tell us who you are and where you're from and what you're about and what we're going to talk about tonight?
Sure. Well, I can't answer the last question because that's for you. I work on a TV show called Shark Tank, as a lot of you may have seen. I work for and with and alongside one of the sharks, or quote unquote sharks on the show, which is one of the inventors. One of the investors, Kevin Oleary. He's sometimes affectionately called Mr. Wonderful. And so as soon as the cameras stop taping, I step in, meet the entrepreneurs, try and figure out if the deal here actually makes sense. Hopefully it does. And then we have to go through all of the due diligence and then figure out how can this deal move forward in the most effective way. There's a lot of details to work out, as you can imagine, in terms of making it work, and then also supporting the companies after we close, because these are long relationships.
Very interesting. So tonight we're going to talk about how big is your big idea. What do you think?
Great.
So you've learned a lot of lessons along the way. I know you know a lot to begin with, but going through and having the experience of working with Kevin Oleary on Shark Tank and the deals that come across your desk with him, what makes a big idea a big idea? And we're going to talk about the successes and the failures that you've experienced with the deals that have come to come to the table for you to make a decision with Kevin. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. I think, a lot of people think that they have a big idea because it's big, to them, because it's the first time they've ever had, an idea that they think is marketable. But as you can imagine, not every deal that we come across has legs. And I think probably the most important question I would ask is, does your idea solve a problem that's not only important, but that's important enough that it'll make people change their behavior? It's not easy to get somebody to change the way they do things. And more specifically, is the pain of changing people's behavior going to be less than the pain of continuing without your invention? That's really the big question I would focus on.
So really, when you're coming up with an idea, What is it that you think really makes that invention or that business something that's going to stand out and be successful?
Yeah. I mean, look, let me give you an example. We invested in a company called PRX Performance, which is their flagship product that they invented is a squat rack, which is for people that work out and do squats. It's a big piece of gym equipment that normally takes up a lot of room in your house or in your garage. And they figured out a way to have the same device, same functionality, but it actually folds away into the wall. Now, this is an expensive product, right? I mean, well, now not so much anymore. They've found ways to lower the cost with scale. But at the time that we invested, you'd be hard pressed to get a full set for less than $1,000. It's not easy. But, that pain of shelling out $1,000, people were weighing that against, well, what about the pain of, I can't even use this room for anything else other than my workout space. Whereas now I have this whole extra space in my house that I can use for anything I want. That's the kind of ratio I'm talking about, where the pain of behavior change being less than the pain of continuing on the way things are. That's the most important question I would ask.
So when Kevin is on the spot there and he's talking to the people that are pitching and he's competing against the other sharks on there, he's got to be able to make a decision and think about, what is it that is going to make me money here? And he's got to kind of do it quickly and think about it. So when he goes through that and brings it to you, what is it? Are you watching as these are I know things are behind the scenes, but how is it when he's done making a deal or presenting a deal to somebody? How is it that you evaluate it after it's done or before it's done?
Well, a lot of people often want to know, do the sharks have any advance notice of what's coming on, right? Do they have somebody like me looking at deals ahead of time? And the answer is absolutely not. In fact, I could get in big trouble if I accidentally found out about something and passed that information on. That would be a huge no-no. The producers take it very seriously. They want genuine reactions, etc. But the benefit, the flip side of that is that I have the benefit of, and my team has the benefit of time, right? We just like you said that Kevin has to make a very quick, decision. We don't. Our deals don't close nearly as quickly as they do in the initial pitch, and it's not so different from the real world out there, right? If you think about it, the handshake that happens on camera, not so different from what you might call maybe a letter of intent, or even just a handshake from an initial pitch in real life. Things are always subject to, working out the details, etc. It's not realistically possible that in half an hour somebody's going to mention every single thing. Right now, we do try and close all the deals. I don't want to make it sound, worse than it is. I mean, a lot of the times, we can't wait to get the deals closed, but we have the luxury of some time. It could take weeks, sometimes even a few months.
So when besides Shark Tank, you're very active with all different types of investments that come to you, businesses, inventors, all different types of opportunities. So what is it that makes a good idea for you? What is it that,
Sure.
Is it the idea on a napkin? Give us a little bit, because there's a lot of inventors that are out there listening. So you definitely help us.
Absolutely. I talked about the kind of the banner thing, which is, how big of a problem is it solving relative to the problem of changing people's behavior. But there's more than that. I think another really, if I had to sort of think of three things, that would be the first one. The second one would be, is this an idea where there's going to be an efficient way to find customers? And it's not a very easy idea to kind of convey, but when you start thinking about examples, it makes more sense. Because efficient doesn't necessarily mean cheap or free, right? Like finding customers doesn't have to be free, especially if you're, I mean, there's many different ways to take something to market, but very few of them cost nothing. I mean, you are going to probably have to, either you or someone else is going to have to spend money, right, to find customers. That's normal. But the question is, are you going to be spending less per, as we say, acquiring a customer? It's kind of a funny way of putting it. Is that going to cost you less than what you're likely to make on that customer? And when I say you, it could be you if you decide to take the path of starting your own business, or it could be you in the sense of whoever it is to whom you'd like to license your idea, if that's the path that makes more sense for you. And just, to hammer home the point that it doesn't have to be cheap to find a customer. There are some industries where the cost of acquiring one customer is in the thousands of dollars, but in those industries, you make much more than that, right? Off of each customer. For a good example, just think about what are the things that have the most invasive, annoying commercials, right? Like, ever seen a commercial for mesothelioma?
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's actually the most expensive Google ad word is mesothelioma, because if you're a law firm and you get one client, the odds are, on average, you're going to make tens of thousands in legal fees off of the win. So that would be something really, really important to think about. There are ideas out there that are great, but there's just no easy way to connect that idea to customers out there in a way that's efficient. Examples might be in things that are for new babies is a common one that we come across. Lots of people, they have a child and they immediately start thinking about, lots of little pain points in the parenting process. Well, the problem is there's a gazillion other companies competing for those new parents. And so the cost of reaching that person tends to be quite high, which means that unless your product solves a big enough problem that you can charge enough money for it, that the margins will be high enough, if you see where I'm going, right, to cover that acquisition cost, it might actually not be a good idea, even though it seems like it is, if that makes sense.
It does. Yep.
Go ahead.
There's inventors out there that when we come up with an idea, we really don't know what we're getting ourselves into, and trying to figure out the consumer and manufacturing or licensing. From the beginning, when we come up with an idea, Alex, tell us what you think is the right path to figuring out if it's something that you should move forward with or not.
Well, Brian, I think one thing that not enough people do is find the right fit between, the idea that they want to run with, because everybody has ideas, right? I mean, let's just be, or at least I think they do. I've
got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I've had lots of ideas over the years, and some of them I don't even bother writing down because, and this is the point that I'm getting to here. It needs to be a good idea for you, or another way of looking at it, of putting it is, you have to be the right person for that idea, right? So if I have some wonderful idea for, I don't know, a new kind of car steering wheel, just off the top of my head. Well, I don't know anything about cars. I don't even like cars. I don't even like driving. Like, it just makes no sense. Like that, I'm not going to bother with that one, because it's just, if I go pitch that to an investor, they're going to say, well, okay, but why you? And I don't have a good answer to that. Now, there is an important caveat, though, which is that the you that gets to the finish line doesn't have to be just you personally. This is really important, right? You can put a team together that fills the gaps, right? But in order to do that, you have to have a really honest conversation with yourself and with if you have any co-founders, about strengths, but more importantly, what are your weaknesses? Because I guarantee you, somebody else will see those weaknesses, and so having filled those ahead of time makes a big difference.
So you can take a product, an idea, and turn it into a full-scale business. and you might need some money. So we've heard angel investors, we've heard seed funding, venture capital. There's all these different types of things that are out there. So does an inventor with an idea on a napkin reach out to one of those venture groups or companies, or to try to figure out how to generate some cash to be able to make a prototype and get out there? That there's so many inventors that are looking for money. What do you think about that, Alex?
I think it's usually a mistake to reach out to an investor with an idea on a napkin, unless you're doing it in a way that is just to kind of give them a heads up that, or getting their feedback with the understanding that you're going to come back and show it to them again in 6 months or in a year's time when it's ready, right? Because then you have the power of being able to say, yeah, I said I was going to do something, and look, a year later I've done it, and here's where I am, right? And that can be powerful.
Well, where's here's where I am, and at what point do we go to an eight? Like, what's first, second, third, fourth there, and
Sure.
when do we go to them?
Well, I think if you're looking, there's an initial sort of threshold decision. I suppose you can always, it's not set in stone. You can change your mind, but there are kind of two paths that inventors tend to choose between if they're going to run with something, right? One being that they're going to build a business around it. And then by the way, you don't have to be CEO if that's not your jam. That's okay. But again, you got to find the team to fill whatever the gaps are, right? And then the other path is the licensing path, where you find an existing company that has the resources, etc., and you pitch it to them. But so depending on which of those paths you feel is a better fit for you, there are different steps to take.
Okay. So you can either raise money, and at the right time where you actually have something substantial to be able to show them, that's when you can ask to figure out how much to ask and what kind of deals. So when the participants on Shark Tank go up there and they have an idea, an invention, and they're putting an X amount that they want for X amount of percentage, how do you figure that out?
Yeah, so the question of valuation is controversial on Shark Tank, to say the least. There are definitely different answers, for how different investors approach that. There is a theoretical sort of ivory tower answer that I won't bother getting into about how you're supposed to do it. I think more realistically, it's about you're kind of combining two guesstimates into one, and then to the extent that you have some data, you try and turn those guesstimates into educated guesses. So the first of them is, roughly how much cash can this thing realistically generate at some point in the medium term, 5, 6, 7 years, or maybe 3, 4 years if you're lucky. And then the other number is, how likely is that? Now I'm really kind of oversimplifying it here, but sort of that's a really basic way to look at it. That's not that far off from the way it's done. So you might say, okay, I think realistically, there's a 25% chance that this thing might generate a couple $1,000,000 a year, because I think that, we're going to sell 1 million widgets for $1 each in 2 markets, $1 million per market. That's 2 million. I don't know. That math doesn't even work, because what about your costs? But
right.
you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Right?
There's assumptions, right? So there's assumptions, and then there's
that's right.
inventors that'll come to the table and say, look, I got a purchase order, a PO. So now
right.
You're validating.
That affects that second number, right? The percentage likelihood. If you've got a PO in hand, now that 30% is like, 50% maybe, because you're already, if it's a good purchase order, and if it's a repeat order, even better, right?
So the further along you are, the more your valuation obviously is going to be.
Absolutely, yeah, and you could see why, right? Because if something is just an idea, the likelihood of it turning into something is almost zero, right? And but the good news is you don't need that much cash at the very beginning for most things.
Right?
There's a lot of progress you can make before raising money.
Yeah, it's interesting, Alex. There's so many inventors that say, I need to raise the money. I need money, right? And say, okay, I'm going to give you the money. Now you're going to start your own business. You're going to manufacture, distribute, handle all the promotions, all the returns, everything. Like, I don't think sometimes it's like, I'm giving you the money to go into business, but I don't want to do that. So what do you need the money for? So it's really important that inventors and entrepreneurs understand that you're going into business. When you're taking money to start your product or your idea or your business, that you're in business. Or they end up considering to license. And licensing is finding a manufacturer that has similar products to yours and adding your product to their product line, and they would manufacture it, they would distribute it, and you would earn a royalty from it. Right? So I'm just kind of sharing that information with everybody out there.
Exactly right. Yeah, you're trying to use the resources, organization, distribution, manufacturing, expertise, engineering, all of that of an existing organization, not yours, instead of building it out. And there are middle grounds between those two extremes, which sometimes get glossed over. It doesn't have to be. There are ways that fall short of a traditional licensing deal that allow you to leverage just some of the resources of a larger organization. But for most people, I think it's easier to think of it in terms of, are you going to build out this business, or are you going to basically sell your idea, right, to a larger entity and let them.
Right, let them run with it. Why do you think Kevin loves licensing so much?
Because competing against big established players is really, really hard, right? And if you succeed, if you become the next, I don't know, Peloton or Snapchat or something, some super hot startup that succeeded against all odds, you're going to make more money than if you had licensed that idea. However, the percentage of businesses that will succeed in that, especially in an established business, in an established industry, is very low for a lot of reasons. The incumbents don't really want you to succeed if they can avoid it. So, and the funny thing is, it's a lot easier to be nonchalant about those risks if you're an investor than if you're an inventor. Because, if I'm Mark Cuban, or if I'm a shark on Shark Tank, or a similar investor who's not on TV, I might very well make the calculus that, sure, even if 6 out of 7 entrepreneurs fail miserably, that's okay, because the risk is worth it, because that, the 8th one, the last one, will make so much that it'll more than compensate for all the others. Well, sure, that's easy if you have a portfolio of people to invest in, right? If you have one idea, you got to be really careful, right? A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. There's not always one answer, though. I don't think that either Kevin or someone like Mark Cuban or anybody on that show would take the position that it's always better to build a business from scratch, or that it's always better to license. It really depends on circumstances.
How do you feel with the deals that he makes, offers for licensing? Are you, when you're watching them, are you cringing? Are you happy? Do you feel the same way as him because he's bringing them to you afterwards?
I mean, we close licensing deals, with regularity. It's a little bit different because it's more of a, our role is, in a way, is bigger in those deals, because there's an expectation, I think a fair one, that we're really going to help find that licensing deal. We're going to get in the reads with the entrepreneur. In fact, we just closed one a couple weeks ago. I have a call in 3 days to get started on figuring out how we're going to negotiate a licensing deal. We often put contingencies in as well to protect the entrepreneur. So we basically say that, look, we're going to do our best here, and if we're able to help you find a deal that you're happy with and we're happy with, great. And if not, we can undo this. You return whatever money we've put in, and that's okay. So in a way, it's less risky for both sides.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I were speaking to you before we started tonight, and my wife's question was, "What is Kevin mean or is he nice?"
I can't answer that question on a national broadcast, Brian. I guess if you people watching promise not to tell too many people. He's actually quite nice, and I always tell our entrepreneurs, you better not tell anyone, because the jig will be up. Right? He's very funny. He is very direct, though, and it can come across harsh if you don't kind of get his sense of humor. But then eventually you figure out that he's just like that about with friends, with family, with himself. It's kind of I think his swagger comes from his philosophical detachment, which seems counterintuitive since he says he's so obsessed with money, which in a way he is, but in another way he isn't, in the sense that he accepts that things often work and sometimes don't, and you just kind of roll with it. It's really quite remarkable, actually.
Very interesting. So there's a ton of comments and questions that are coming along. So
Great.
I know you might have sent questions a little bit earlier, but now I'm asking for them. So maybe you could just put it fresh in the bottom of the new comments area. I know that there was one about Kevin Oleary's Start Engine. If you could comment on that one.
Sure. Yeah. Start Engine is a really interesting company. I can't remember if they approached us or we approached them. I can't remember how we met them. But we've been trying to figure out. Okay, wait, let me zoom out for a second. So when you look at startup investing as a kind of an asset class, right? It's not actually open to the general public. There are rules and regulations around who is allowed to invest in a startup. And the reasons for that are really to protect the investing public. The idea being that if somebody comes along and says, gets your grandma to invest in some snake oil and then disappears into the sunset, right? That if we just allow that to happen, bad things will happen, basically. So that's sort of the logic. And so the idea is that if you want to raise money, you have only two choices, basically. One is you go through all of the work to do basically what a public company does, which is that every quarter you have to file really detailed financial statements. You have to have a whole team of accountants and lawyers and so on, right? And if you any one misstep and you'll be sued, which happens regularly, right? So that's obviously not appropriate for a small business, as you can imagine, right? It's just too expensive. Once you're talking in hundreds of millions of dollars, sure, no problem, right? But if you're raising your first $100,000, it's ridiculous. Right? So that's one option. Or the other option is you can raise money from people who are already wealthy. People like Kevin Oleary or any of the other sharks, or people like me, angel investors, right? So the reason for that is the idea is that those people, they don't need the protection of the securities regulator, because they could kind of take care of themselves, right? Okay, if Kevin Oleary loses $100,000, right, it's not going to be a strain on the social security system, right? Compared to if grandma loses $100,000.
Okay.
That's I'm just explaining that because I don't want people to think that it's a conspiracy to keep the rich rich and keep the poor poor. Although it sometimes seems to have that effect a little bit, but that's not the intention. It's well intentioned.
Okay.
Okay. once upon a time, not that long ago, in I believe it was during the Obama administration, but it was a bipartisan initiative. There was something called the Jobs Act, which was passed by Congress to try and create a third path. Because the problem is, if you want to raise money and you can only go to existing angel investors and people like Kevin, well, okay, but the pool of capital available to you is just a lot smaller, right? Like compare that to anybody can buy a share of Facebook or something, right? So they created this new regime where you could go and raise money from normal people, and instead of protecting people by saying you have to already be wealthy, there would be other ways to protect them. For example, you can only invest X amount per year in no matter how many deals you do, right? And they created a middle ground of some disclosure, but not so much that it requires an army of lawyers and accountants. The reason this matters to your listeners is because there is now, and there has been for about a decade now, a way to go to the market and raise money from average people without raising gajillions of dollars. And now, but it took several years for a company to come along and make it easier to do. Like, even though the Jobs Act has been on the books for some time now, multiple attempts have been made to create a really easy platform for going through that process, and it's been difficult to get off the ground. Now, Startagen seems to be the first to have really succeeded in doing that effectively in a way that really works. So they basically behave like a small investment bank on behalf of, if you want to raise, $500,000, $1 million, $100,000, something like in that range, they can help you meet all the requirements of this Jobs Act. And also, the key thing is you're allowed to market. Like you can put an ad on Facebook saying invest in my business, which you cannot do in traditional venture capital. It's not allowed. It's called general solicitation, and it's a big no-no. So it really opens up the possibilities.
Very interesting.
Sorry if that was a very long answer, but I feel it's important for people to understand what problem is being solved, and it's hard to get that into a soundbite.
Do you encourage people to go to that Start Engine?
I mean, yeah, because you should know what your options are when it comes to raising. But not only that, I think I would encourage people not to consider themselves capital constrained on a daily basis, if that makes any sense. Like, if you have an idea where the only reason why it's not moving forward is a lack of funding, like, that's not a reason to kill an idea at all. It doesn't matter if it's because you don't have $1,000, or if it's because you have $1 million in the bank, but this one requires 10 million. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, if the idea has legs financially, you should be able to find the money. And so there's nothing wrong with familiarizing yourself with the avenues that are open to you.
Okay. Let's take another question here. So Frank Williams, this question is for Alex. Is there any particular way to approach potential investor or company with a patent pending invention without being too pushy and or annoying?
Yeah. Why are you worried about being pushy or annoying? I mean, that's, I've done deals with people who are super pushy and annoying. Okay. Seriously. I mean, you got to grab somebody's attention, and sometimes, a sense of humor helps, right? A little self-deprecating joke. And, if somebody really says no, then you should probably move on. But there are so many investors out there and so many potential paths. You should definitely not get discouraged if, one or two don't pull the trigger.
Okay. We have a bunch of questions
so many
here.
Crazy ways people got in front of investors. I mean, it always surprises me.
Here's another question. We have a bunch coming in, Alex. Moby Grip. Alex, is USA manufacturing more favorable than China?
It depends, right? It depends. If speed matters, right? So to give you an example, you had somebody talking about 3D printing earlier, just off the top of my head. If you have something that is highly customized and you need to get it to your customers quickly, then yeah, you want to be wherever they are, right? You only want to be making it in China if you're selling it in China. On the other, or another example would be if it's highly automated, right? The cost of labor is higher here, which is good because we want people to be well paid, I think. So if it's mostly automated or robotic or something like that, great. Or maybe if there's a reason why, from a marketing perspective, it really needs to be made here. We have a company we invested in that makes all kinds of things that are made by U.S. veterans, and that's kind of part of their story. You can't make that in China. That wouldn't make any sense, right? On the other hand, if you're just going for volume and cost, and it's that kind of business, then you should probably consider going wherever makes the most sense financially. I will say that China is starting to concern me a bit specifically. You should also consider other jurisdictions that have favorable trade relationships and good, human rights and environmental records.
Okay. Don, compare Start Engine versus Kickstarter.
Oh, well, Kickstarter is a great resource that anybody on this, anybody listening who hasn't heard of Kickstarter, you should definitely familiarize yourself with. Kickstarter was created to solve one of the many chicken and egg problems that inventors face. Namely, I'm pretty sure that people are going to want to buy this, but I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to spend the money, or I don't have the money to invest in the tooling and manufacturing, right? Until I know for sure that people want it. Or another way of putting it would be, maybe I know that it'll be successful, but I won't get paid until, first I have to pay the factory to make the first order, right? And then I have to import it, and then it has to sit in a warehouse, and then I'll get paid if I'm lucky 90 days later. Well, what am I going to do? I've never had an order yet, and it's just, how do you get it off the ground? So Kickstarter says, put the idea out there on their website, and then people can buy the product long before it's been made. And if and only if you pre-sell enough of that product to hit the amount of money that you need to make that first order, then they'll release the money to you, and then people who bought will kind of get an email update or something every month up until it's ready. And there are some percentage of customers who are these early adopters, and they don't mind. They're happy to support something that they may or may not get a few months from now. And sometimes you don't get it. Like I bought on Kickstarter, I bought somebody had the idea of taking the genes from deep sea creatures that are photoluminescent, that glow, and injecting them into plants. So you can have glow in the dark plants. I thought this was the coolest thing, and it never shipped because I kept getting emails about how they're progressing, and it just got worse and worse. We tried this plant, didn't work. It just didn't work, basically.
Yeah.
So it's your own risk. But what's great about Kickstarter is you're not selling a piece of your company. You're just selling product. So you still own 100% of your company at the end. So if you have an idea that fits for that, my goodness, it's a great resource. And
Indiegogo also is pretty popular.
Yeah, also great. Yeah, I've met the founder of Indiegogo. He's a great guy.
I'm just going through there's so many questions and comments. It's really, when you're coming up with an idea and you need the money, what do you really need the money for? So get to a point where you kind of bring it to life in a way that you can show it and you could talk about it and have at least a provisional patent application filed. So you're patent pending. So you say, how you doing, Alex and Kevin? I have this product. I developed it. I'm at this point. Is it something that I'm going to take the money and try to manufacture with this one product, one SKU, one item, and try to get out in retail? Or is it something that is an opportunity to license where you can earn royalties from? So it's really that fork in the road, Alex, that so many people are stuck at. And to start showing investors, I think for the most part, just from my experience, Alex, and working with other inventors, it's really about having some substance, some activity. Show me something. Show me that you have a purchase order. Show me who's interested. And then let me see if it's something that I want to put my money into. But don't you think like you got to put some skin in the game?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's nothing worse than somebody who thinks that, you know, they're going to come to you as an investor or as a potential partner because this idea of theirs now is going to be entirely your problem, right? Like, it's not only do they want you to write them a check, but they expect everything in their life to change as soon as this meeting is done. Well, you know, I have some unfortunate news for anybody who thinks that way. That is not true. I mean, the person pitching the idea has a long, hard road ahead. And even if you choose, you know, we talk about the licensing route as being, you know, easier. Yeah, I mean, in relative terms, it is relatively speaking much easier than building a business, but it doesn't mean it's easy, objectively speaking, right? You're still in sales. You know, you still have to put together a really compelling story, not necessarily for the end user, but for the licensee, which would be the, you know, it's Procter and Gamble or, you know, some whatever company it is that you think would be a good licensee. Yeah. And you have to talk about it in their turn, and you have to learn about their company and what are their internal politics and who should you be pitching to and how who can you get from inside the company to be a champion for you, you know, when the inevitable roadblocks start coming up. How are you going to, you know, get the data points to overcome the objections?
Yep.
Yeah.
I picked this question from Peter. Do you have to find an investor familiar with the specific market of the idea? It's really whether you're pitching an investor or you're pitching a potential licensee. Don't you think that's important to know kind of like their background of what they do? And, you know, if you're going to try to license an invention, and Samantha was on and she has a layered ladle for bartending in your home, you have to really get to a company that does similar type of things to be able to add her product to their product line, for them to manufacture it, distribute it, and for you to earn a royalty. But am I going to technology app type of company with a layered ladle to try to raise money?
Yeah. You know, it's usually a good idea to get people on your people who are aligned with you in terms of, you know, if you succeed, they're happy, right? To the extent that you can get those people to be from the same area of the business world that you're now going to be playing in, it's usually a good thing. I say usually because I've certainly come across companies where they almost prefer investors who just write them a check and go away. So that can sometimes be the case. But I would say most of the time, yeah. I mean, if you have the luxury of choice, where your idea is interesting and compelling enough that you could actually be choosing who would be investing, yeah, you should consider getting somebody who is more quote unquote strategic, because, you know, you will have problems where you need to call somebody and you know, get their advice. And if that person already knows you and has already been following along, it makes everything easier.
So some final words of wisdom, Alex. You've given plenty, but there's inventors that are listening that have the idea in their head. They maybe have made a prototype and they don't know if they should manufacture and start their own business and find a shark and raise the money and quit their day job and get going, or to license it so they can earn royalties and not necessarily quit their day job and maybe get some revenue stream coming in from royalties to be able to quit their day. There's a lot of decisions to be made. And you've done a super job really giving us some insight on what the options are out there. But some final words of wisdom from you, Alex, if you can help to just kind of ease the challenges that inventors have out there and what we have to look forward to.
Sure. I would say don't be afraid. You know, you have the worst case scenario is not as bad as you think. You know, if you quit your job and run with something and it doesn't work out, there's another job you could fall back on. You know, and by the way, it's not a bad thing. You know, it's not, if you meet somebody and they tell you that they tried starting their own business and it just didn't work out, that is not a bummer to hear at all. In fact, to me, that's fascinating. We've tried things at Oleary Ventures that did not work, and then we try new things, and then those things sometimes do work. So I think, you know, don't get cocky, right? Life is not easy, and even if you've had some success, you know, the next mistake could still be devastating. But, you know, don't get so wrapped up in any project that it could paralyze you. That would be a real shame, because then you'd be robbing the world of the chance to actually see your invention.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's people out there that really make decisions on emotions rather than business?
Of course. Yeah.
How do you separate? Because look, when we come up with an invention, you know, I'm busy with my next invention. I'm just saying, we come up with ideas and we start to, it's like, you get like this feeling like it's my new baby. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to go online. I'm going to do my research. But, oh man,
Excited.
do I want this to be my next gazillion-dollar invention? And then you start to just keep going, and you're not thinking or seeing anything else or hearing anybody else. You're just kind of excited in your own world to get it out there. But
I think you hit the nail on the head at the end there, Brian. The problem isn't having emotions or using emotions as an input into decisions. I mean, emotions are an important part of the way we make decisions and can be quite healthy. The problem is when we are not thinking as well, right? There are two inputs, right? There's your kind of gut feeling, emotion, that whatever you want to call it, and then there's also the rational, sort of sober second thought, if you like. And so I think, you know, if you have a really good gut feeling about something, to me, that is an important data point, and I wouldn't denigrate that. But you also need to double check, right? Which is why, you know, they kind of come full circle. At the beginning of our discussion, I talked a bit about how we try and move from just almost a random guess to more of an educated guess. And that's really the process of saying, okay, well, the reason I have a good feeling about this is because I think there must be, you know, 1 million people who are in this demographic, you know, in my state. And I think that people would easily pay $5 each per, you know, every month. I don't know. Okay. Now let's go and see if we can confirm some of those assumptions, right? Or find some data point that's at least somewhat close to try and refine. You really want people in your circle who will help you think through things. You don't want people who are Debbie Downers, but you also don't want people who are just saying yes all the time. You want to kind of have that back and forth to just see all sides of something and tease things out.
Absolutely. Let's take one more question here. This was an interesting one because it was asked many times. Roberta, thank you for your question. Would Kevin O'Leary look at something to invest in if I have a prototype or and a patent?
Probably not. We tend to invest more in companies rather than in sort of ideas or inventions. But I think it's really important not to get discouraged by that answer because, you know, television has a way of making us think that some people are either less special or more special than they are. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, the stars of Shark Tank are fascinating, very successful people, and they're great to have as investors and as friends. But there are a lot of investors out there that are not on TV. And I'm always amazed. I don't know if you fall into this category, Roberta, but there are some people out there who reach out to us, and it's like, it's as if Kevin says no to them, they're just going to go home and stop. And it's just like, and I can't wrap my head around that. That makes no sense. And first of all, just because these people are on Shark Tank, they've already got so many deals that frankly, they may not actually be as good as somebody who's not on the show, because you might find somebody who's only done 5 or 6 deals in the last decade instead of, 50, right?
Yeah.
So how much of their time are you going to get? So, don't get discouraged by that answer. For every investor who has a certain investing style, there's going to be somebody else who has a different one.
Very interesting. So people are asking how they can get in touch with you, if they can get in touch with you, if they
Sure,
can
yeah, I'm happy to.
ideas. So tell us what you're looking for, and if they send something to you, for example, what kind of expectation should they have?
Well, I think it depends. It's such a cop-out answer, isn't it? What are we looking for? We're looking for businesses that are riding sort of really important mega trends, if you like. So, we're really interested in things like automation, green technology, anything that takes advantage of, the aging population, or, kind of pick your mega trend. And things that also, in Kevin's case, things that have a good fit with, his ability to help market things by virtue of who he is. Kevin doesn't necessarily want to write a check if it's in a situation where somebody else's check is just as good as his. But he wants to know that, all else being equal, he's more helpful as an investor than somebody else would be. And that doesn't mean that it's because he's better. It's just because, just like anybody else, he might be a better fit for certain types of businesses than Start Engine is a great example, right? When Start Engine approached Kevin, that the fit there is so obvious. We had it papered in days, right? Because hello, okay, we've already been looking at the Jobs Act for a decade. We've been waiting for something like that to come along, right? So of course he's a natural fit to be a spokesperson, etc., because he's known for investing in startups, right?
And also companies that he has already a portfolio with, if they align nicely with what he has, it seems like he's already gone through a path that he feels comfortable with.
That's
that
true.
He can see already, right?
That's true. Yep.
Interesting. All right. Well, we could talk all night. As these questions are coming in, and that was one of them that I had up there a second ago, was what's the hot industries, what's trending, what's not really to stay away from, was the other part of that question.
Mm-hmm.
But you gave some good insight there. So if we were to have you look at our business plan or invention, how do we get in touch with you? Is it through Start Engine? Is it you directly?
No, I wouldn't go through Start. Start Engine is a different animal.
Yep.
We're sort of friends with them, but that is a platform for raising money from the public.
Okay.
If you are interested in getting in touch with me, I think I'm pretty easy to find online now that you know what I look like. My last name is Kenjeev. I don't think there might be 5 people with my last name in the world at most. So if you just type my name into a search engine, you should find me on your I'm on most of the social networks. I'm not on Clubhouse, despite people telling me for months and guilt tripping me and so on. I don't post as much as I probably should, but I am findable. I will eventually get your message. I have email, obviously, it works. If I don't respond right away, I will not be offended if you ping me again a few weeks later and say, "Hey, man," because I sometimes miss things and I just don't take it personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there's plenty of inventors out there. Tanya, she's a green brand. There's plenty of inventors that you may be hearing from very soon. So
Great.
I know that you're active on LinkedIn, so they can find you on LinkedIn, and you're friendly that you're accepting invitations on there. So that's nice, and then they can send you a message, and you've really done a great job. Like, we've gone through so many different aspects and avenues of when you come up with an idea, how to turn it into a business. Is it something to manufacture, to license, to start your own business? These are decisions that we have to make, and ultimately it's our decision, but we have to keep moving forward. And the one more part, Alex, is really about, when do you stop? Because look, we talked about the emotional side.
Great
How do
question.
you know when to just say, you know what, I love it, it's a great idea, but it's not going to make me any money? What does it take to make that decision?
That is a very, very good question, because it's hard to let something go. And one of the cognitive biases that people tend to have is that the more time they've spent on something, the less they want to let it go, because it's as though if they let go of it now, it means they have to admit that they've, in a sense, been wasting time for the last months, years, right? Weeks, even hours. It doesn't matter. Kind of the more, and if you put something out there, if you've built a website, or if you've told your friends, even more so. There's just, and it's not something that you can easily overcome, because it's part of human nature. It's been documented by people who study behavioral psychology, etc. So I think it's really important to really not see killing an idea as the end of your journey, or even as in some way taking away from the importance of the work that you took to kill the idea. It's just part of the process. You know, you're not realistically going to have 100% good ideas, and you're not realistically going to not lose months or even years on paths that don't go anywhere. There's really no shame in that. And in fact, some of the smartest and most successful business people I know love to talk about, mistakes that they made and screw ups. And, you look at Robert Herjavec as an example. One of his sort of catchphrases, he loves to start sentences by saying, and what I learned was that really what he's saying is, I tried something and it didn't work. I'm not going to do that again. Right?
It's true.
And it's part of the fun of, business is fun. I mean, nobody really says that, but of all the things you could do for a living, inventing stuff, bringing it to market, and building, whether it's businesses or inventions, it's a really fun way to spend your life. It's not so different in a way from being an artist or a movie filmmaker or something, because there's a creative element to it. But you're not going to find an artist that puts every single one of their recordings out there, or their paintings, or whatever. I mean, there's going to be a mountain of crap that they throw out, and that's fine. I mean, that's just part of it.
Look, you're putting your time, money, energy, and effort into your idea.
But you're not, right? You're putting it into ideas in general, right? You're putting it into being an inventor. Being an inventor, that's what you're committing to. That's what you got to think about it. Don't think of it as like, I am this widget. Like, that's not going to, right? It's not a good idea. I mean, in hindsight, sure. You're going to read stories about somebody, and when you tell the story afterwards, it looks as though that's the only thing they ever did. From the moment, Johnny was born, the only thing he but that's not actually how it was, right? There's this whole other side to their life that all the paths that didn't go anywhere, and that's just part of the
very interesting.
Dance.
And at the end of the day, the question is it going to make you money? And how much money are you putting in, and what are you getting in return? Are you listening to what other people are saying and getting that feedback, and it's not just for you anymore, because you want other people to use it and to buy it for the same reason that you came up with it. But it's not just about you. You made something specific for you, but will everybody else use it? Did you come up with something that might take 2 or 3 more steps now? It's a new idea, but is it making it more difficult to get something accomplished? It could be interesting and unique, but is it going to make it more complicated? Do I have more parts to wash? Do I have more risk of something breaking when it was just easy to just do it this way? So these are questions that you really have to be true to yourself before you move forward. And look, asking your friends and family, that's great. They'll give you a nice pat on the back. And if they tell you that your idea sucks, you'll be very upset with them. So it's better off that they tell you it's great. So you get out there and you evaluate if your idea makes sense or not to people that just everyday people that are just going to give you just a straight up answer. And
That's right.
Right? You don't tell them that you're the inventor of it, because then they're going to feel bad. You look, what do you think of my idea?
That's a great trick, actually. Yeah. It's
Right?
a great.
What do you think of my idea?
Your job for the first few years is you're always chasing the next data point. You're constantly trying to refine. You're like a scientist trying to get validation for whether or not something really is true to the assumptions that you had. Whether you assumptions are something, we all have assumptions. We just don't. You're taking something that's normally unconscious, making it explicit, and then refining based on that real world feedback. That's a very, very good insight. So the quality of the data is higher to the extent that it's people who are disinterested, people who aren't your family or friends, or if it could be family and friends, but only if you know for sure that this is a person that just doesn't care.
Right. Well, look, Alex, people come to me with, let's say, like this really unique golf ball, right?
Mhm.
It does all these tips and tricks and everything that you can imagine. So when you're in the golf course and you look around, wow, everybody plays golf. Actually, everybody in the world plays golf. But when you step out of the golf course and you ask people, do you play golf? Do you play golf? It might be a little bit different of an answer. So these are the things that you really need to evaluate before you decide to move forward with your idea. And it's okay to stop, because when you clear your mind of one that's just kind of holding you back, you'll have room for the next one. And once you're in that zone, like me as a serial inventor, like I'm coming up with things all the time. I evaluate it. I make a decision if I'm going to move forward or not. And I just keep going. But when you're into that zone, when you have that zone of coming up with ideas, it'll just keep coming. Give yourself a chance. Right?
Yeah.
It's fun
Yeah.
stuff. So Alex,
is.
thank you very much. Really, really appreciate you coming on to the National Inventor Club platform here. I know that the inventors are really appreciative. I see all the comments, and you might be able to see it on the recording. But I'm glad everybody enjoyed it. Alex, fantastic. If you want, you will see the recording of this on National Inventor Club website. And to everybody listening, thank you for joining, and keep on inventing. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you. It's such an honor. And I just also want to say thank you to everyone who has been listening and sending in your questions. One of the things I'm most grateful for is the chance to meet and talk to folks like you who are quite literally taking humanity forward, right? By making things cooler, more interesting, more fun, and making life better. So
thank you so much for reaching out to us, Alex. Really appreciate it. Have a great night. And everybody, keep on inventing. Thank you again. Good night.